And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us as we work on 10K on 10-1. Yes, today is 10-1. And, we're here to help raise money for a charity water campaign for the people in Orissa, India. We all know how important water is. It's something that we may take for granted. But we brought together some of our friends in order to see what we can do both to help raise money as well as raise your awareness. That's something that kind of came secondary, I must say. But as I look at all the great speakers who are a part of this, we're not only helping to raise money for water, but we're also giving back to you who's watching this, because it's been phenomenal, the information. And falling right in line with that is Rich Brooks from Flight New Media. He's the online mobile guy, everything you need. So thank you so much for being with us, Rich.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So now, here's one thing that we kind of take for granted is the online piece of everything. Does every business need a website? What do you need? All those type of things. I think in the circles we run in, we may take that for granted. So trying to break it down for small businesses, nonprofits, what do they need?
Right. Well, I guess it all comes down to, there's so many options out there today, and there's a lot of things that you kind of feel that you need to do right. You need to have a website, you need to get found, you need seemingly these days to have a mobile presence. There's no one right answer for everybody. So I think what I would generally say is what you want to do is take a step back, take a look at your business goals. What are you looking to accomplish? From there, then you can start to come up with some strategies. Do you need to generate leads? Do you need to make online sales? Do you need people to walk in your storefront? Do you need people, if you're a nonprofit, do you need people to make a donation or make a difference? Do you need to get some grassroots going? So whatever you're trying to accomplish, you need to start with that. And then you can start to work your way backwards and say, okay, well, if I need people to if I need leads, if I need people, especially if you're in a professional business like website development or coaching or consulting or accounting, whatever it is, where probably people aren't going to click on a buy now button, then you probably need to have some sort of website where you can start to generate leads. And the website these days should be mobile friendly. So there's a lot of different ways to create a mobile friendly website, but it is critically important. They say by 2014, more than half of the world's web traffic is going to be delivered via a mobile device, so you have to be ready for that. And here in America, because we have so many desktop computers and because this has been part of our life for so long, we're probably not going to see that 50% mark happen in 2014, is my own opinion. I just think in other parts of the world we're going to see that mobile tipping point happen sooner. But that doesn't mean that you can't take this seriously. And if you're looking at your analytics, your traffic reports, you've probably already seen a surge in mobile business. So one of the things you need to do for your next iteration for your website is make sure that your developer is developing it on a mobile-friendly platform. Now these days that could mean responsive web design. If you're on WordPress, it might mean WP Touch Pro. There's a number of different tools and platforms out there that can give you a mobile experience, or give your audience a mobile experience, but that is one of the most critical things you need to do in terms of building your next website.
You bring up a very, very, very good point. And I don't know how many times I can say "very" in a sentence, but I will try.
Go for it.
Because we, with the website we created for this movement here, socialmediathon.org, we put all the beautiful pictures of you guys, all the speakers, and you hover over it and it says View Profile. But when you view it on the phone, it's different. You have the pictures, but you have to actually click to get the hover effect. And you look at pictures, you don't click.
Right.
So we didn't know until a buddy of mine said, "Hey, Mike, I don't know anything about these speakers." I said, "What do you mean? If you hover on it, it tells you view their profile."
And he's sitting there like this going, "I'm hovering, nothing's happening."
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So it was an experience for us.
It does take a lot of extra testing, and we run through this because Flight does website design. We do mobile sites now, but we've discovered the same thing: is we think we've got everything all set, and all of a sudden you bring out a new platform, you bring out a new tablet or a mini tablet or an extra large phone, and everything changes. So you just have to do a lot of additional testing, and I feel that the simpler you design your websites, the more flexible it's going to be for different types of platforms. So we're actually in the process of redesigning our website. It's been out there for 4 or 5 years. It feels like it's been there forever. and my designer's like, we should do some cool stuff with some, jQuery and all this sort of stuff. And I said, that's great. I don't want people coming to the website to see how many bells and whistles we have, though. I want people coming to the website because they're looking for information. Let's keep that first and foremost. That if we want to generate leads, we need to create an insanely valuable piece of real estate that people are going to be attracted to. And then once they're there, they'll see your expertise is being established, and hopefully they'll want to do business with you. And it was interesting, just a few weeks ago, we had a conference here in Maine called the Agents of Change Digital Marketing Conference. And my friend Roderick Russell, who is a mind reader and sword swallower, professional mind reader and sword swallower,
wow.
He opened the show. And he did some amazing things, including swallowing a 26-inch sword. But his presentation was about being remarkable, which he obviously was. But one of my favorite takeaways from the entire day was from his presentation. And one of the things he said to me was, or said to the audience, was that at the beginning of his career, he would just keep on trying to do crazier and crazier stunts, continually trying to wow the audience, but it just becomes a game of one-upmanship. Now, he still tries to do amazing things, but what he found is his audiences were wowed, but they weren't moved. And that's a much different thing. So whether you're doing, whether your business in general or your website, yeah, wow factor is great, but it's much more important to move your audience. And I think that can be used in a couple of different ways. One is you need to move your audience emotionally. You need to make that connection with them. You need to immediately get them to realize, hey, this person or this business cares about me and the outcome of what I'm trying to accomplish. And then also, from a more tactical standpoint, you need to move them down the sales funnel. So maybe you need to engage them on Facebook or Pinterest or a Google Hangout. But you need to ultimately bring them to a place of business, and that business is your website, or that place of business is your website. You need to move them there, and then hopefully you've created enough valuable content that you're helping them solve their problems till they get to a point that says, at least I need to consider this company when I'm making my next buying decision. And I found that that model works for a wide variety of different types of companies, whether you're selling websites or car repair.
So I'm hearing, or you know what? It's interesting because usually when I think of website, automatically my mind goes to design. But now, as we're talking, I'm also hearing copy. How do the two kind of coexist?
Well, they should coexist. Sometimes they fight. I hear from a lot of people who come into my place of business, and they say, I want to rank higher at the search engines, and there's too much copy on my website. I said, that's probably not the case. The bottom line is search engines don't care how pretty your website is. They do care about the quality of the copy on there, as people do as well. You need to find that balance. And, we just worked with a client who had like maybe 50 to 100 words per page, and she was wondering why she wasn't ranking well at the search engines. The search engines need more than 50 words on a page for them to say this is valuable content, because you're competing with every other website in your industry and in other industries that are using the same language. So you really need to think about what you're saying, and not that you should make it unnecessarily long, but you do need to create valuable copy, and you can do it in different ways. But the other thing is, I work with a wide variety of different people, and a lot of times they're authors or they're writers, and I suggest getting a copywriter, and you can tell that they're offended. And they're like, I just wrote a book. Like, how can you think that I can't write copy? And I'm like, listen, I know you can write copy. I know you could write me emails. I know you wrote a book. But it's a different style. Good copywriting is persuasive in nature. And so what I think about, or the example I give is, you think about the Olympics. You've got runners. Some runners run the marathon. Some runners run the 100-yard dash. Two very different races. You never see the same person running in both, right? It's the way it is, because you specialize in something. You specialize in writing a book about raising resilient children. This person has specialized in writing copy that get people to take an action. And that's really what you want. You brought up copy and also design. So the two areas people don't spend enough money or resources on when it comes to their website are those two things, copy and photography. It's like, I can have a gorgeous looking website, but if you give me crap photos, your website's going to look like crap. It is really truly a matter of the weakest link. So I can have a gorgeous layout that's very effective and mobile friendly and responsive, but if you give me photos that you took at the front of your office on your iPhone, 9 times out of 10, that's not going to be a compelling visual story for your audience. It's not going to build up trust. You've got like 3 seconds for people to immediately evaluate whether or not you are a worthwhile company or not. And if you're trying to cut corners on photography, you're going to lose people. And if you're using the same terrible stock photography that everybody else is using, you're going to lose people there too. They don't know you from Adam. You need to show that you are, because anybody can build a website, and anybody can build a good-looking website these days.
Right.
So you really need to go above and beyond to say, look, this is a legitimate business. We've been doing this for a while. We know how to help you. We've invested in our web presence. You can tell by the photography, and as you get further into the website, you can tell by the content. Mm-hmm. So it's about finding that balancing act. And I know like a lot of people were like, oh, it's always about the copy. Nobody cares how good looking your website is, but that's just not the case. You know, and there's been evidence to show that people make snap judgments. Visually is how we immediately make our snap judgments. If your website isn't up to snuff, it's gonna fail. And actually, I just told this story the other day in a presentation I gave about this PR guru and author and presenter by the name of Michael Levine. And he created what he calls the Tiffany box theory. And it simply states anything in a Tiffany box has a higher perceived value than something in a plain brown box or a no box whatsoever. So what does this mean from a design standpoint of your website? If somebody gets to your website and it's in a Tiffany box, they're going to give you a lot more credibility. Deserved or not, it doesn't matter. Just that's how human beings react. You put some great content, but you have a really generic-looking website or a poorly designed website, people are not going to read the content. They're just going to say in the back of their mind, listen, we're busy. It's not our fault. We're busy. We make snap judgments. And if I look at a website and it looks terrible, it looks amateurish, I have to assume that the rest of the business has that level of amateurism. And that's just the way human beings act.
Are you saying I need to change the color of my website to Tiffany
blue? No. Unless you're trying to, no, definitely not Tiffany blue. But whatever it is, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be high end either. You know, if you run a greasy spoon diner that's well known, you know, for its history, then you're definitely not going to go with white linen tablecloth type design. You're going to do something that's more authentic, but you're going to spend time to make it look that way too. And I think that's the difference. You can market a mid or even lower range product or service online. It still has to look like you are in it for the long haul. And so that's where design plays an important part, to tell that story visually for the split second that you have somebody's attention.
I like it. I like it. So the thought or the understanding that, hey, it's the way it looks also says, are they just tinkering, or are they really invested in the business? We do
Absolutely.
have a question. You have a question that came in from YouTube, and it says, what are some examples that you've seen of people using social media in a completely ineffective way? So we're kind of moving over a little bit
Sure.
to the social side of things, the social media side of things.
Well, there are so many social media horror stories that have been told again and again. I'm not going to go down that road, but I do remember that I got a friend of mine who joined Twitter, and he happened to mention it to me, and so, or maybe it might have been that I saw that he was a new follower, so I went and checked it out. He had one tweet up. First of all, he had his name and a really weird Twitter handle that told me nothing about him or his business. The picture was of his 2 kids and a dog, and he was selling granite countertops, and he said, high-quality Boston-based granite countertops, call me for information. And I'm like, everything about that is wrong. Because all you're doing is you're just pushing out information. First of all, at this point, you've got like 2 followers, so nobody saw that tweet except for me. And I took a screen capture so I could use it on a slide called How Not to Use Twitter. Right. And you're providing no value. You're providing no conversation or opportunity to engage with you. All you're doing is trying to push out your message like it was on any other channel. So in terms of using social media ineffectively, I think of social media, yes, you can sell on social media. I won't say you can't. But the way that I choose to use social media is like a networking event. Not that I'm really great in public networking events, but when you go to a networking event, you don't walk around trying to make a sale. You walk around and you ask people questions and you talk to them and you try and get a better understanding. And even if it's a business networking event like a chamber event or a social media breakfast, right, you don't just go in guns blazing, throwing business cards at people, trying to get their business, or walking around with a blank contract saying, Mike, sign my contract. Nobody would ever do business with you.
Right.
So anytime when you're using social media to push your agenda without having, well, anytime you're pushy, you're losing business. But as long as you're out there and you're engaging people and you're getting an understanding, what you want to do in a real-life networking event is engage people. And if it turns out that there's a good fit, then you might say, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee sometime. Or why don't you come back to my office and I can learn a little bit more about what you do. So you're bringing somebody from the networking event to a place where you can do business. You're bringing somebody from Twitter or Facebook where they want to hang out, it's fun, it's social, to your website where you can do business. So it's a very similar activity. So what are people doing wrong? They think that people care about their product or service. They don't. They only care about their own problems and the solutions to get there. So that's how you need to think about using social media.
Excellent. How, in that problem kind of discovery of the problems that folks have, what are ways that your company goes around to discover some of the problems that are happening in the space?
Well, from a client standpoint, if somebody says, Rich, we're trying to increase our online visibility, or we're trying to attract more quality traffic to our website or convert that, obviously one of the first things we're going to do is just take a look at what they're doing right now. And I still think too many small to medium-sized businesses are using social media incorrectly in terms of they're just talking about themselves. And really, nobody cares about your business, with very few exceptions. If you're a Coca-Cola, if you're an Apple computer, if you're a Zappos, yes, they care about your company, but those are very rare animals indeed. I think instead we have to assume that nobody cares about our company. Nobody cares about our products or services or solutions. So we take a look at these companies, and then we say, what are you doing in social media? What are the conversations? What are you doing to engage people? There are probably conversations, no matter how seemingly dull your product or service are, that would be engaging. Are you using the right channels? Are you having the right engagement? And the other thing we often do is we'll take a look at their direct competitors and also similar types of business to see if we can learn anything like, well, look, here's your competitor. They're getting much better engagement from you. Part of what they're doing is they're telling some behind-the-scenes story. Or part of what they're doing is they're asking their customers easy-to-answer questions on Facebook. Or maybe they're doing some online advertising on Facebook or Twitter. And so these are some of the things. Not that you should necessarily mimic everything your competitors are doing. You definitely don't want to be a Me Too company. But you can find some things that they're doing right that you can work into your own messaging. That's also a good reason why you should always look at other industries outside of your business, because when you take something from another industry and you steal it, it's repurposing. And nobody notices. Like, if you find, like, oh, this car dealership's doing an amazing job and I think I can use that for my accounting business or my hair salon, that's just genius. That's creativity. But if you find another hair salon that's doing something and you basically just do it, that's just Me Tooism, and that's terrible. So it's a fine line, but you can see how the differences work.
Definitely, definitely. Here's a question that comes to mind, and I've been asking some of the people that I have with me. I know that there are times that we have a positioning, let's say as a speaker, as a business owner, and people come to us and they want to talk to us about that stuff. Yeah. So, hey, talk to me about social media. Hey, talk to me about mobile. I'm just curious, what is it that you, Rich Brooks, want to talk about that you just don't usually get to talk about? What is that it just seems like an answer means nothing? But like, people aren't really interested in this, Mike, but you know what? They really need to know it.
I guess my whole thing, and I do get to do my own presentation, so I do get to talk about what I want to talk about mostly. So it's not a problem that maybe some other people have. I know, like, if you are the Pinterest speaker and you feel that, like, that's not the only thing going on, you're kind of stuck in that role. I've never been that niche player per se. My thing's always been about how small businesses and nonprofits can use different types of channels. But the message that I often have for people is more a message of what we talked about at the beginning, is that you shouldn't necessarily be focusing on what's the newest thing that I should be doing, or what's coming next, or what channel should I be using. Yes, that is an important question, no doubt about it. I think the better questions to ask are, what are my business goals, and then work your way backwards. So that's an ongoing struggle that I have with some businesses where they're like, I want to start doing this. I want to start doing YouTube. I saw so and so using YouTube. They were very successful. I want to use it too. And I'm like, that's great. I'm glad you're passionate. What are you going to do on YouTube? Oh, I don't know. All right, well, what are your business goals? Is your audience on YouTube? Are they, these are the kind of questions we need to ask ourselves. If you love doing something, if you're like, I love interviewing people, great, start a podcast, interview them, whether it's a business-related one or a personal one. That's a great way to have a hobby. But is that necessarily good for your business? That's the kind of question you have to ask yourself. So that's something that I often tell people and have that discussion about, just taking that step back and really focusing on what's important to your business.
Excellent. So you did mention that you just had a conference, or I don't even know if you mentioned it was your conference, but let's give you credit.
Okay.
That just took place, the Ages of Change digital conference. So what is the premise around that?
Sure. Well, this is the second year we've done it, although it's the 5th year that I've done a conference here in Maine. I live in Maine. We don't get big things like NMX or SMX or Social Media Marketing World to come to Maine, so I decided I wanted to put on my own conference. For me, the things that are most important for small to medium-sized businesses and nonprofits these days in terms of digital marketing are search, social, and mobile. So what I really want to do is put on a conference that focused on all three of those things and brought in speakers from around the country to talk about search, social, mobile. So we had search experts, we had a lot of social media experts, we had a great selection. I mean, Chris Brogan was the keynote, and he always does a great job. He's a social media superstar. Mike Stelzner, Social Media Examiner, was there. John Dumas, a podcast entrepreneur on fire, who just last year started a podcast and basically talked about how he built this from nothing into a 6-figure-a-year job. I mean, I remember when I met John at a Blog World in New York, and he told me he was quitting his real estate job to become a professional podcaster, and I was thinking, man, how are you ever going to make this work? And then, of course, he blows up. Right. We had James Wedmore spoke on YouTube marketing. He was great. Laura Fitton from HubSpot stopped by to talk about Twitter. So I just wanted to bring something specifically to businesses and nonprofits in Maine, but we also wanted to kind of take it global. And so what we did is we also sold a digital pass, and people could either watch live and participate, or they could watch on demand too. So we had a lot of people who tuned in live, and a lot of people who are actually planning on watching the sessions. They should be, I mean, they should have actually been up already, but they should be up in the next day or so people can check those out too. But it was, it was fun. It was an enjoyable day. I got to talk about, again, what I wanted to talk about, which is how to take all these different things, search, social, and mobile, and really use it to generate online leads. Mm-hmm. Because for me, that's where I put most of my focus. We do e-commerce sites, and I know there's a lot of e-commerce options out there, but it's definitely something where what I get most passionate is how do you attract an audience, and then how do you get them to take a desired action. And so one of the big things for me is getting people to join a mailing list. I always say small businesses, the power is in the list. You really need to take a look at your website and say, how do I get somebody to give me their contact information so I can continue marketing to them? Now, as always, there are going to be businesses that need a list more than other businesses. I just talked to a new prospect yesterday, and they basically have a medical device, somebody needs it, and then they never need it again. So getting them on a mailing list is probably not going to be one of their core needs, where for me, somebody might make a decision that they are interested in website or social media consulting, but not actually make a buying decision for 6 months or even a year, and that's happened to me all the time. Right. So for me, it's critical to get them on a mailing list and then be able to supply them with quality information on an ongoing basis, so that when it comes time to I absolutely need a website, or I absolutely need help on social media, that they're like, we have to at least consider Flight, because they've been giving us all this great information for free. Imagine what the value would be as if we started paying for it. And I think that model works for a lot more businesses than people think. So if you are the type of business that either has a lot of repeat business, or that people take a long time to make a decision, or you're planning on getting into some passive streams of income, like you're going to sell a knowledge-based product, then building your email list is critically important. And that's when you need to use search, social, online advertising, webinars, whatever it takes to build your list, so that you can gently market to them over time. So when you have that knowledge-based product ready, or when you have that next step up to whatever you're already offering, you have a built-in audience of people who have already said, I care about what you have to offer.
That's a great point, and one of the things that come to mind is the whole thing, you got to make your friends before you need them. And the work that we're doing right now with the campaign and the donations, I sat down and I looked at the list, and I pretty much know 92% of the speakers. I have some kind of relationship with them.
Yes.
And it's just interesting, and it takes time, and it's like the kind of the drip. You speak of Chris Brogan. I met him at your conference, and then I started seeing him at a bunch of other conferences, and then I'm on his email list.
Right.
So we kind of communicate back and forth. So building that piece there. I do have another question that came through YouTube, and it says, what has been one of your biggest business aha moments this year?
This year, I think probably one of my biggest aha moments this year has been the idea of actually, how do I want to put this? Minimalizing. So, for example, we have a website and a blog, and our blog is set up separately because when I started on Typepad so many years ago. You had to set it up separate from your website. So I had a blog, I had a website. For my blog, I had an email version of the blog. I also had an email newsletter for my website as well as some other email lists as well. It just got confusing. So as we're actually about to redesign and redevelop our own website internally. And one of the things I decided is I wanted to bring everything under one roof. I really wanted to just put everything under one brand. I got a brand new domain name for this. We are going to have the blog and the website live in the same place. But the other thing is, like, you know, I have an email newsletter, and every month I upload it. I post it to my website as an article. I send out the email through Constant Contact. Then I've got my blog. I'm asking people to subscribe to both. It's very confusing. So what I decided is I'm going to take this moment in time, I'm going to condense everything so we have one email, one website / blog hybrid, and that's going to be the focus. So we're really going to try and concentrate all our efforts right there. And through that, I'll probably come up with an editorial calendar where I'll be blogging. I'm actually a big fan these days of blogging less often than more often, and that's a whole other conversation we can have. But like maybe a weekly article that will go to the blog that will also be the email newsletter. So the email newsletter will basically be the blog just sent out via email. And whether we send it out in its entirety or as a teaser email to get people to come back to the blog, we haven't yet decided yet.
Okay.
That is a big aha moment. That content is content, and it's just the different channels you use to engage your audience and make it as easy for them to find and engage with your content.
Okay, so the aha being less, consolidation, less, and I think with it, like everything, you kind of test and see, hey, how is this working?
Yeah, absolutely. If it turns out that this was a terrible idea, we'll switch back at some point in the future. But I think that, as our businesses grow, we start adding more things, and at a certain point, it comes time to start pruning that bush. And you got to say, okay, what's working, what's not working, and if it's not working, do I get rid of it entirely? Do I put more energy towards it to fix it because I see potential here? Do I fold into something else I'm doing? So I just feel that in the last 12 to 18 months personally, I've been stretched too thin trying to do too many things. And so what can I do so that I can spend more time creating better content? I guess that's really what it comes down to, because we've been putting out a lot of content, and a lot of it's good, but I just want to make sure that everything is as good as possible, the best it can be. And at my conference, I actually said something, and sometimes, when you do a presentation, if it's a social media audience, you know what really resonated because you go back and you look at all your tweets and retweets.
Yes.
And there were two things that got retweeted quite a bit, and I'm not sure if I'll remember the other one, but the one that really stuck with me is talking about the amount of content you need to create. And basically was, you cannot beat the internet on volume, but you can beat the internet on content, clarity, and perspective. So in other words, create less content, but research it more, polish it more, and promote it more, and you're going to get a better return on your investment. A portfolio for any artist or writer, you start off and you put everything in the portfolio. And then over time, you start saying, this isn't the best example of the work. And after you get this really big portfolio, it gets bigger and bigger, all of a sudden you start to hone it down to something that's really valuable, and beautiful, and also digestible for the other person on the other side of the table. So I think that's another a good way of looking at it, is you really want to kind of get rid of some of the lesser work in your portfolio and focus on the best stuff.
Excellent. Excellent. On that note, Rich, I'm going to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to help us with our 10K on 10-1 goal. Again after.
All right. Mike, I really appreciate the opportunity. Always fun to see you. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
All right. Take care.